me say welcome to BRICS Africa channel.
Thank you. Thanks for
Once again, we speak at the Gauteng Investment Conference, powered by the GGDA. Please tell me, just heard now that you're not allowing any squatter camps in Gauteng.
No, we're not. We want to be an investment destination of choice. We can't be an investment destination of choice if there's squatter camps on every corner, every vacant available land. So we're clamping down on the proliferation of informal settlements.
Human settlements is a keystone beyond just infrastructure. It is where the investor asks themselves whether, if I put up a factory here, where do I live? Where do my workers live? And what is in the pipeline for you?
No, sure, definitely. I think for us, we're trying to especially build integrated human settlements, mixed-use developments that will accommodate different types of accommodation, from student accommodation in a single development now, so student accommodation, rental accommodation, your RDPs, and even bonded stock, so that you have different demographics living in an area, and then investment can go where there are people, because you want also people to live closer to work opportunities. And then the mixed-use development has got to include schools. It's because people don't want to live where there's no school. It's got to also accommodate other social amenities, libraries, recreation centers, as well as transport nodes. That's a very key component, so that people live where they can live, but also commute closest to where they work, closest to where they go to school and the children go to school. So it's not just houses in the middle of nowhere and nothing else. And I think that's really what we're building. And as I said, you've got RDPs, the traditional RDPs that we know, but also right next to bonded houses. So people, different demographics. So you could have, labor, your labor force, your labor market is easily accessible. But even those that want to further develop the area, so they are in the higher earning bracket.
And are you creating partnerships with the private sector?
Yes, look, our developments are largely driven by the private sector. And if you look at our mixed-use developments, they largely come from the private sector, where the private sector owns land. And they say, look, we are willing to make a certain portion of our land available for social housing and RDPs. But we actually want to develop this for bonded houses. Lots of people are now, especially in Gauteng, are looking at sectional title ownership. We don't have space. And I think it's also it's not always practical to have a very big house. It's costly to maintain. You work away from home. You want to lock up and go, something that's safe, secure. You don't have to really worry about common areas and maintenance and that sort of thing. So it's driven by the private sector. They come on board with their land. They put in the initial investment. We then support the investment of the social housing or the RDPs.
And how is the regulation? Cape Townians are suffering and crying about the rental stock, that they've been driven away from their cities. What is the policy direction in Gauteng?
So in Gauteng, we're still very competitive. And the data is showing lots of people are actually moving back to Gauteng because it's unaffordable, as you said, even in Cape Town. So we're still very competitive. You can be, a lot of private sector developers are now also looking at conversions of what used to be office accommodation. They're actually converting those into nano units, so small units for rental stock. You can rent between 5 and 8,000. Even in our social housing stock, you can rent anything between 5, even up to 12,000, depending on your earning, and it's on a sliding scale. So it's dependent on how much you earn. You don't want to go beyond 60% of your earning on rent. So those are quite exciting because they're in very, very key nodes of where there are economic opportunities and job opportunities. So we have quite a number of them, like in Midrand. The minister last week launched one in Benoni. And that's really, we've launched several in townships because people also want to stay in townships. They don't always want to move out of townships. If they've got their family, they've lived in a township for different generations, You've got your grandparents living there, your parents. It's also the community that you know. So we're even investing in townships to have rental stock. Very competitive. You can rent a unit in the township for about 4,500 up to 8,000, depending on your earning. And there we're looking at your civil servants, police officers, nurses, teachers, even that are not yet ready to own a home. That are looking, transitional arrangements. Maybe they just want to, because they're working and they found employment at a particular school as a teacher. So they want to just, live where they can walk to school, walk to where they earn. So that's where we're developing. And it's taking off. There's a huge demand. In fact, we don't even have enough stock for the demand that we have.
Tell me, MC, if I'm sitting in Moscow or Beijing as a fund manager and I want to invest, what are the opportunities? What do you have to offer for me to be able to shift those funds to come and be a partner to your settlement?
So, of course, the biggest for us, our bigger dependency is on municipalities and bulk infrastructure. So we always direct them to go to municipalities and offer assistance to municipalities for bulk infrastructure, because that's where it starts. And from there, that will be a catalyst for us to be able to come and support.
And are there any incentives for BRICS countries that want to come and invest in this market?
Quite a number. We're looking at, of course, African countries that want to enter into the property development space. African developers, they are quite keen. Of course, the property development space has always been, it's a small niche market, but it is opening up. BRICS, not so much. We've not really looked beyond the African continent, but I'm sure there's going to be appetite going forward.
Let me see. Thank you for joining us at BRICS.
Thanks for having me.